Hello, boys and girls. Today's art activity is going to be another landscape activity. Today's project is going to be inspired by a famous artist named Georgia O'Keeffe. So before we get into what the activity actually is, let's first watch a quick video on her life and her artwork to get us inspired in thinking about colors and landscapes.
What are you painting, Moby? Cool. This reminds me of a painting by Georgia O'Keeffe. Who was Georgia O'Keeffe? Georgia O'Keeffe was born near Sun Prairie, Wisconsin in 1887. As she was growing up, Georgia took art classes. Later, she went to art school and studied painting. In school, she learned to paint things as they look in real life. But she got frustrated. She thought she couldn't communicate her feelings through that style of painting. She wanted to paint how she felt, not what she saw. Then she met a teacher who encouraged artists to express their ideas. O'Keeffe began to experiment with lines and colors to communicate her feelings. She also explored shading. Shading is when you add shadows or darken areas of a picture to make parts look closer or farther away. You can draw a simple shape and then use shading to change how it looks. Now this circle looks like a ball. What did Georgia O'Keeffe paint? O'Keeffe was inspired by things from nature, especially flowers. She painted large close-ups of flowers. She wanted to show them in a different way and show what they looked like on the inside. You can hardly tell that some of the paintings are flowers. She focused on specific parts to make them seem new and different. O'Keeffe looked at things from different spots and explored different points of view. This painting shows a tree from the bottom looking up. This painting shows the sky looking down from above the clouds. She wanted to help us see something common in a different way. O'Keeffe got ideas from her paintings from the land around her. Buildings in New York City inspired many of her works. When she spent time in New Mexico, she created landscape paintings. She used different colors to show how she felt about the land. This painting is called From the Lake. It doesn't look like a real lake, but you get the feeling of a lake. The curved lines are like waves, and there are different shades of blue. Sometimes shapes around her inspired her paintings. This painting is called Patio Door with Green Leaf. It doesn't look like a real door, but the shape reminds you of one. I love looking at O'Keeffe's paintings because they communicate a combination of different moods. In this painting, she combines an animal skull with flowers. What moods do you think this work communicates? In this painting, the skull can remind us of death, but the bright blue makes the painting happy and not scary or sad. When you create an artwork, think about what feelings or ideas you want to share. Think about what to put in your work and explore colors and shapes. I can't wait to see your finished painting. Achoo! Sorry about that, Moby.
All right, so I hope that video gave you guys a good bit of background information on the artist Georgia O'Keeffe. She was an amazing, amazing artist. I personally love her work. I love her use of color and her use of color to not really tell you how things actually look, but how those things maybe make her feel and how she wants to make the viewer feel when they look at her artwork. I think that's amazing. So that's a little bit what related to what we talked about with our last self-portrait project, where I sort of asked you guys to go maybe deeper into who you are. You could have used color to convey that as well. Combining that now with our landscape knowledge, we know that a landscape is a picture of an outdoor scene where we have sky, land, and we have a skyline. Most of the time, landscapes are done on the orientation where it's longer left to right. Okay, so I've done an example, and then I'll show you now, and then I'll do another example step by step with you in the next clip. Okay, there are a few different options for materials and ways to go about this. So this is one of my examples, my Georgia O'Keeffe inspired landscape picture. I did this with pencil, crayon, and then watercolor on top. If you guys remember, that is called a watercolor and wax resist, that process. So that's just one idea to get you guys thinking about where we're going, where we're headed. Yours, of course, does not need to look like that. It will look different because we're all different artists. So materials, crayons are great. You could just use crayon. You could use crayon and then do watercolor over the top. So it's like an optional extra step. If you don't have crayon, you could use marker or colored pencil. So just whatever I'm showing you guys with crayon in the demo, do that same thing with marker or colored pencil. Let's get started.
All right, let's go over our materials. Pretty simple stuff today. Pencil and crayons, okay? And then at the end, optional watercolor. But don't worry about this. If you don't have it, you just stop when we finish our crayon. So what I've actually done, I forgot to mention, to my crayons is I have peeled back the paper. So typically your crayons come like this. They have paper around it. But we're going to need to use the sides of the crayon. So you're going to need to peel back. You could even do it halfway or maybe just part way. I just have a bunch that I've peeled back, okay? So go ahead and peel your crayons, paper on your crayons back. You can do the whole thing or halfway. Pause it and then come back. Okay, so as you guys saw in the video, Georgia O'Keeffe spent some time in a place called New Mexico. Now, in New Mexico, the landscape, the outside environment is very mountainous and very desert-like. So it's very dry. There's a lot of warm colors everywhere. It can get really hot, but there are a lot of mountains and hills everywhere. So it can be very, very picturesque. So for my landscape, I'm going to kind of imagine this mountainous but dry, deserty environment, okay? So I'm going to start drawing some lines that go in points for mountains, okay? And we're going to practice what's called layering and stacked perspective to do this, okay? So I'll explain as I go. So let's draw my first my first layer, my first mountain line. Okay. Right now, if this was all I would do, if this is all I was going to do for this landscape, this would be the land, this would be the sky, this would be the skyline. However, I'm gonna draw more, okay? There's gonna be many layers of mountains. It's gonna be a whole mountain range, you could say, okay? You can have some lines go down and then pretend that there is a mountain behind it. See what I did just there? That mountain could be behind, has the illusion of being behind this one. This part I would recommend just doing in pencil because you might want to change a few things. Maybe this one would connect there, but you wouldn't show that line because it would be behind. So this is the idea of layering. Okay, and then maybe like a swooping line down here. Maybe you get more into a valley as you get lower. Okay, so the idea of stacked perspective, I'll put those two words on the screen, means that what is on your page that is further towards the bottom, okay, the bottom of your page, those things are going to appear, or you would like them to appear closer to the viewer, more up front. You could say more in the foreground of your piece. And as you go up on your page, those things are going to appear to recede more into the background. So as if they were further away in real life. So if this was a picture of an actual landscape, these mountains would in fact, and if you were standing here looking over at this mountain range, these mountains would be further away, these mountains would be closer up. So anything that's closer up, you want to put further down on your paper. Anything that is further away, seems to be more in the background, you want to put higher on your page. Okay? All right, so you got your crayons ready. Decide what mountain range you want, what color you want each mountain range to be. I would recommend choosing one color for each layer of your mountain range. If that doesn't make sense, I hope that it will when I show you, okay? So I'm going to pick this dark brown for my mountain range in the back, okay? So I'm going to first go over, I'm just going to use the point. You could use the back, doesn't really matter. I'm going to go over my pencil line. If you're doing this with crayon, if you're doing this with colored pencil or marker, you're doing the same thing, okay? Now, here's the fun part. Here's why I asked you to take off the paper from your crayon. You're going to create some fun lines by using the side of this crayon, okay? So, if you would like, you could kind of create, and this is what Georgia O'Keeffe does a really good job of doing. She creates these like mountain ridges, and then she creates lines coming down from them. So you can tell that this part of the mountain is like coming up. And then you create all these lines to create this kind of three-dimensional or 3D effect. So they really look like mountains. They don't look flat in her paintings at all. Whoops! My crayons are not the best. They're a little bit fragile, but that's okay. So that's my first one. I'm going to do the same over here. Okay, that one I didn't really put a middle ridge, so I want to show you, you can do either or. Now, I'm going to pick another different color for this mountain range. We're going back forward. I think I'm going to do this blue. Or this is maybe blue-purple. Let's see. Oh yeah, it's definitely coming out purple. Sometimes you don't know what color it is until you draw with it on the paper. Breaking again. All right, so this one I'm just gonna really just gonna kind of shade it. For me, when I see these sweeping lines and even the action when I'm creating these kind of gently curving lines, gives me the feeling of sort of this serene, quiet, peaceful place. And that's what I imagine New Mexico to be like. I've never been in person, but I imagine these landscapes to be very majestic, but also very just serene and quiet. So that's kind of what I'm going for. It's the feeling or mood I'm trying to convey to the viewer. Make sure I'm still on camera. Okay. Next. Now, if you wish, you can overlap colors and you'll get the combination of the two. So I am overlapping yellow on top of my green crayon. So I'm going to get some type of yellow green. Kind of want there to be like two ridges there, so I want there to be some difference in color. All right, so there you have it. If you are just using crayon today, this is where you stop. I hope you enjoyed creating those sort of flowing lines on your mountain. You could also, make some windy lines with crayon in the sky. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, what you do if you have watercolor is you just simply add washes, light washes of color over the top. So for example, I'll just show you on this one very quickly. So I just took I had a very wet brush and just a tiny bit of my brown, kind of matching the color. So if it's brown, I go brown. If it's green, I go green. Purple, I would go purple, okay? I'm not trying to do a different color. Now you can see it's kind of rippling on top my watercolor because there is wax on the page. There's crayon. So it's really just gonna go on in your white spaces. It's not gonna go where your crayon already is. Your crayon will show through. So this is just if you want to kind of color in your white spaces, and of course if you have watercolor. Okay? All right. Enjoy, send me pictures, and I'll see you for the next one.